Welcome to a new edition of Sweaty Impact Makers. My name is Luc and I interview people who share a passion for the bike and want to make an impact in the world. Today, I have the pleasure to interview Giorgio, who took the amazing adventure to ride around the world on a wooden bike. We'll talk about what it takes to make this kind of a challenge a success, and it's not about being positive. We'll talk about the risks you can't control and the risks you can control, about his best breakfast, about the preparation of his routes and his future goals. So, without further ado, enjoy this edition. I hope it inspires you to ride more and to have an impact.
So thank you very much for having me here on the podcast. So I cycled 33,000 kilometers in 32 countries. I started in Brussels, went from Brussels to Istanbul, from Istanbul to Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, India, Nepal, then back to India. There sadly for the civil war in Myanmar, took a flight to Vietnam. Then from Vietnam cycled to Phuket in Thailand. Then took a boat down to Australia. Then cycled all the way across Australia, cycled New Zealand, took a flight all the way to South America, and then cycled from Santiago de Chile all the way to Cartagena across the Andes. I found a boat where I sailed from South America all the way back to Europe to Faro, and then from Faro I cycled back to Brussels to finish my trip and to finish a 33,000 kilometer.
And over 10,000 miles of sailing as well?
Exactly. 10,000 miles of sailing too. Yes.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
Can you take me 1 year ago? Who was Giorgio? I mean, were you an endurance cyclist? Were you an avid cyclist? What did you do?
Of course, I enjoyed cycling. Actually, like a lot of people, I started cycling throughout COVID, and I enjoyed quite a lot, as you can imagine. And for a cause, I raised money. I cycled from Madrid to Brussels, and I realized I was doing 200 kilometers a day, and I realized, well, this is not so hard. This is not so difficult, and I want to do something else. And then I started working in a consulting firm, and it wasn't made for me, and I wanted to do something special. I had a dream, and I didn't know what was the dream. When I was younger, I couldn't study at school. I was the bad kid at school, you know, who could never work. And but all the things I could read was about James Cook, was about Mike Horn, Mark Beaumont, guys who went around the world. And I told myself, well, if you never try, you'll never do it. And the hardest step is the first step, actually getting into it. The first step out of the door, you know, all these hard trainings throughout the winter. And so I was a normal guy. I was completely a normal guy, and I'm still, of course, a normal guy. I think everybody can do it. It's just a certain state of mind that pushes you to go out, pushes you every day, waking up and going through. And a lot of people, since I got back here, told me, oh, what you did is so amazing. But when you actually get into it, it's your daily life. It becomes your daily life, and it's like going to work in the morning. Just for me, work was around 200 kilometers a day on a wooden bicycle, sometime through Iran, sometime through minus 15 degrees at 5,000 meters in the Andes. Well, it's a different kind of work, but it was really enjoyable.
Amazing. How did you persevere? I mean, it's some people can ride for a week, some people can ride for a month. Some people say, yeah, it's all about being very positive and let's do this challenge, but how was it for you?
First of all, I have a bit of a hard relationship with all this term positivity. I think positivity, it's important to a certain extent, you know, but it will never follow you throughout your entire journey. It will never follow you throughout your entire trip. Positivity at one time fails you. Sometimes you hit rock bottom. You start to climb. I remember these special moments in the Andes. I had already cycled, did one climb in the day, had more than 3,000 meters of elevation gain, and in front of me I had another climb, 4,000 meters of elevation, from 1,000 to 5,000. It was around 40 kilometers at 6.7% average, and I was dead. I couldn't push anymore. And I can tell you at that moment, I was far from being positive. And I think in these kinds of moments, positivity is truly, excuse me the word, but it's bullshit. It's what comes into importance is rigor. Really, every day, continuing every day to understand, to have a big objective and to always think about the big picture. Not too far away. Because if you start thinking too far away, when I leave Brussels, I never dare to think about Brussels. If not, the objective is too large and you'll never actually be happy with yourself. So when I leave Brussels, I think about Istanbul. It's always like this. When I start Australia, I don't think about Brussels. I think about the end of Australia. It's building yourself up, and as well throughout the trip you gain confidence. You gain confidence through the people you meet, because that's also a very important part of the trip. Not only cycling, it was for me a really physical challenge, but much more than the physical challenge, it was discovering people and discovering how other people think. And so the endurance part came through, if I can rate it in a few words, is rigor, positivity from time to time, but you always know one thing, is that when the flowers are gone, they will reflourish one day. And you might be bad today, but in 3 days the weather will be better, it will stop raining, in 3 days the legs will be better. You have to understand your body. This is not a war of attrition, this is long-term cycling. You don't go 200 watts per day, no, you go long hours on the bicycle.
Yeah, so it's about breaking up that big challenge into smaller projects that are much more manageable.
Completely. Understanding the big picture, but understanding as well that you can't tackle the big picture in one go. And yes, sometimes it's hard, you know. Sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it helps. I remember myself in Australia, 40-kilometer headwind for 2 weeks in a row, and at the end I couldn't handle it anymore. But my way of thinking was, cycling is such a binary sport, you know. Either you go forward, either you don't, you know. And whatever, okay, today I'm doing 15 kilometers average. Mentally it's hard, but I have to push in a downhill. I just did a big climb, and in downhill I'm on the smallest pocket, and I have to push. Yeah, mentally it's hard, but that's like this. You have to adapt, and every situation you have to adapt. I slept on the side of the road in India. You have to adapt, and the most important thing about that, I think, is about the nutrition. In terms of nutrition, how many calories did you bring with you on the bike, or did you just went from the thing is,
one day in advance, or?
Once again, planning is very important on these kinds of trips. You know, in Chile, I remember I had 4 days, 5 days, 6 days without any place where I could get food. And then there you have to prepare. You're like, okay, I have to survive 6 days, or how many calories do I have to bring in? And
how many hours?
And
a day? How many calories a day would you take in?
It really depends. You know, if I could, as much as possible. You know, you don't have really a nutrition plan. That's the question I've got asked quite a few times. What was your nutrition plan throughout the ride? Well, when you're in the middle of India, in the middle of the Himalayas, you can't start deciding, you can't start weighing the grams of carbohydrates you will take in one day. No, that doesn't work, you know? So you just eat what you can eat. If you have 6 days of cycling, well, you take as much as you can. Mm-hmm. As much as you physically can. And yeah, some days I would be doing at 5,000 meters, 120 kilometers, which is quite a lot at that height, with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of elevation gain with no asphalt, and with on 2 little sandwiches, you know. And that's, you understand, your body as well can go much further than what you think. Mm-hmm. Your body can push itself. You don't need to eat as much as, but I do it when I can. I do it. But worst case scenario, you don't eat, you will still go forward.
Yeah.
And the most important is the mental part, and if the mental part is there, the physique will usually follow.
Yeah. You also talked about your this appetite for risk.
There will be risk you can't tackle, so it's indirect. There's nothing to do with you. It's the cars sadly you can't do nothing about it. But there's a risk which you can really consider, and you can have an impact on it. And for me, the 2 main risks were the downhills. Actually, that's when cyclists injure themselves the most, is going too fast on the downhill and falling on the downhill. So compared to the others, I was going very slow on the downhills, but I didn't care. I was always thinking about the big picture. And the second thing was at the crossroads. You know, a crossroad, I was always going, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't stopping at every, I was at every stop sign, I wasn't stopping all the time. I like to go around the rules from time to time, if not it becomes a bit boring. But always taking the risk into account, you know. I'm going at a speed where if I don't see, if I see potentially there's no cars that are going to come, well, I'm going to go through, you know. But if I see there's a potential risk, I will go at a speed where I will be able to brake. And that has saved me on a couple of times. On a couple of close calls, I was like, yes, this was good. And going downhill, the max I was going was 40 kilometers per hour maybe. It's not fast, but at the end of the day, who cares? It's a war that will go on. You fall once, it might be the end of your trip.
Yeah, yeah. So trying to minimize the risk you can control.
Yes, exactly. Of course, there's a lot of risk you can't control. And I got really sick on many occasions. I finished in a prison in Pakistan. I spent one night in a prison in Pakistan. And yes, these are risks that you can't control. Is the other people. And as well, throughout the trip, you learn a lot of things. You learn about other people, how to deal with authority, for example, how to deal with many different things. But once you leave home, there's a few things you can have an impact on, and I think it will be borderline, not bravery, but stupidity to not take these into account. You are, for 1 year on the road, I spent on my saddle, 67 days sat on my saddle this year. If you don't take these risks into account, there will be a problem someday, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you've been to a lot of different countries in all different continents.
Yes.
What was the best breakfast you had?
There was a lot of breakfast from Turkey, Iran, there was a lot of breakfast. But I think one of the best breakfasts I had was coming out of the prison in Pakistan, and it was kind of a weird setting because I woke up early, they let me out, I told them I was hungry, and I have this gentleman who made me probably one of the best teas I have ever tried in my life, but at the same time he made me a crepe. He didn't want me to leave before I tried his crepe. He was like, no, you have to stay. I was like, well, come on, I have to go to Karachi today. Let me go. No. He was like, you have to try my eggs and you have to try my crepe. In the middle of nowhere. And it's actually quite funny. I have a picture with his breakfast, the tea, and he had left his AK-47 on the side of the table. Something that you don't see that often in Europe. And you have to try it. And God, it was very good. It was very, very good. It gave me energy for the rest of the day, and the rest of the day wasn't that nice. I can assure you that.
All right, super. Very concrete. When you were planning this trip, did you have a GPX for every road you took, or did you just went by day, or how was the managing of the trip itself?
So the managing of the trip, I knew the main lines I wanted to take. I knew that. First of all, there's a few rules. So if you want to go around the world, an official around the world on a bicycle, you have to go from one given direction, going from east to west or from west to east, in my case from west to east, all the time, or from south to north, north to south. Mm-hmm. This as well counts. There's a given direction. So into that perspective, I told myself, okay, so I want to go from west to east because the major winds on land go on that direction. So that was taken into account. And then, when do I want to leave? I looked a bit what was feasible in my personal opinion, but what was the smartest time to leave. So I thought the beginning of August seemed good because the end of the summer, the middle of the summer in Europe, then I get into fall time in the Middle East, so it's not too warm. Actually, I went through one of the hottest deserts in the world, the Luth Desert. It actually already went to temperatures like 82 degrees, 83 degrees, and but there at that time was 35, 40 degrees, so it was fine. It was not too warm. Then went through there. When I went to India, it was not too warm as well. So all of that thing, until Calcutta, I was always a good temperature to be in a t-shirt and a shorts. Never had to wear a jacket except the few times when it rained. Actually, and it didn't rain between Istanbul and Calcutta, which is 8,000 kilometers. I was quite pleased with that. Then I arrived in Vietnam a bit too early, so I got the monsoon season. It rained a lot, but that was alright. It rains, you go. At the end of the day, when you're wet, and then you keep on going. You don't think about it. You're still thinking about your objective, and there's a few things that could have really stopped me, and I really have trouble to deal with failure and a little thing like rain. It was warm, It's never something that will stop you. Then it was good weather until Thailand. The winds were not too good in the Strait of Malacca to go to Australia. Then Australia, you can't build a perfect plan. Australia was the summer. I went through the Australian desert 54.8 degrees, the max I had on my GPS. And I can tell you that it's warm. It's like being in a sauna. You breathe, and you have hot air coming through your entire body, which is quite a weird feeling, I'm not gonna lie. And there actually my helmet melted. So at some point I feel a bit of plastic on my head. I touched my helmet and it was full of plastic. And it was a good brand, like it was Casque. Some people do the Tour de France with this helmet. And it melted. So that was something. And then New Zealand had half the time very good, then rain. I 10 days in a row rain. And then for South America, I was getting there end of summer as well in southern hemisphere. And then when you get close to the equator is the good time. The time always is the same, you know, it doesn't really change. It's just raining and dry season. It was dry season. And then perfect time to cross the Atlantic with the good winds. And then I got back to Europe and it was summer. So actually, the only moment where it was, if I can say, hardcore type of weather was summer in Australia, and when I was at 5,000 meters, battling through snowstorms in Peru, in Chile, and Argentina. I got some minus 15, minus 20 degrees, and that was some tough times. But that's how that was the planning. And to answer your question more in detail, sorry, I went a bit vague into the question, but no, I didn't have daily GPX when I left Brussels. I had maybe for the week in front, but always taking into account the people that I was meeting and telling me, oh no, don't take that route is much more beautiful because you can go see this side, the road is better. And I was always taking that into account, not too much, because you realize that people through the world, they are very nice. Most of the time people are very nice and they always want to help you. But sometimes they tell you, oh, the route is that one, the route is very good, it's only 60 kilometers. Sometimes they have no clue. And so actually the route is 200 kilometers, you know, and so you end up with no food for 200 kilometers. I had it, and trust me, it's a bad experience. And so I developed a little technique. I would look on the map more or less, you know, if I want to know the quality of the route, I look on the map and I would ask the guy, never ask a question where the person can answer by yes or no. He will always say yes, trust me, I try. But ask, first of all, an open question, but have a little bit of information. So you ask him, oh, the next town, which is at 80 kilometers away, how is the road? But if actually the town is at 250 kilometers, and he tells you yes, yes, yes all the time, you know he has no clue about it, and you will not listen to that guy. But so yeah, that was kind of the preparation of the route and my way of thinking about how to play with the weather.
Yeah. So you developed some people skills as well.
I have to. Very important people skills gets you. It's negotiation all the time. Really negotiate all the time with the police, with the locals. Every night I would sleep. I would say 50% of the time I would sleep in the tent. 40% of the time I would sleep at people's houses. And so building trust as soon as you arrive. You know, looking at people in the eye is very important to build trust. And as well with the military, with the police. In countries that are where humans are, in developing countries, sometimes the authority for the police is very important, you know, to feel the authority. And so playing the stupidity card, knowing you've done an error, but really playing the stupidity card helps. So the person in front of you feels superior and lets you go through, you know. People love to feel superior and you don't care. Once again, you think about the big picture. I don't care his opinion, how people judge me, how people look at me. That's not my problem, you know. They will keep with these stones for the rest of their life, no problem. With me, I have to go around the world, you know. Yeah. And that's how you think.
Cool.
Yeah.
You didn't choose a regular bike for it, like you mentioned in the beginning. I mean, it was not a carbon bike, not a steel bike, and you went for a wooden bike.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about the bike itself?
Yes, of course. So, first of all, I think I chose this bike because it had never been done, and I think the unknown always brings interesting things. And this bike came from literally the forest behind my house, which I thought was an amazing image. But as well, to build this kind of bike, it's not usually bikes are made of carbon, titanium, aluminum, and other things. But that's the main bikes, the main material where we make bikes. and they're quite polluting to extract all these things. And I wanted to show that yes, with non-polluting materials you can do a lot, and with materials that actually come from your home. And that was the main thinking behind it. And then I came to understand the bike, and the bike was made in collaboration with Zafi, which is a Belgian brand. Who the engineer behind it, Simon Malvaux, is a genius who made an amazing bike that lasted 33,000 kilometers without a single problem on the frame. But okay, of course, it's not a bike. You don't have to expect a bike that is efficient. It's not a bike that will win the Tour de France. Never. But that's not what he wants to make. He wants to make a comfortable bike. You know, I went through some roads where it would have been hardcore for a mountain bike, but it was probably not the best roads for it. It's not made for it. But the bike was comfortable. I could spend 12, 13, 15 hours sometime on the bike and feeling comfortable, you know? And that was the objective. That's why I chose this bike. That's the two main reasons, to show that with some ecological material, you can build a bike, and the wooden bike, you can spend hours and hours and hours on it with no problem.
And do you already have the record for the first guy to go around the world on a wooden bike?
Actually, I have sent it to the Guinness. They have answered me, and they told me that's not really. They don't know if they're interested by it, but you know, the record is a piece of paper, and that's really not why it's interesting for me. Yeah, it would be nice. I'm not gonna lie. It would be nice. It would be nice, but you know what? If I don't have it, whatever. I have it in my head. I have my trip in my head, and it's the most important. I made so many beautiful discoveries. I had so many problems that I had to overcome. I had so many different things that I learned. You know, when you're on the bike, for me, it's kind of a meditation. You know, you think about many different stuff. You think about friendship. You think about love. You think about many different topics of everyday life. You think about the judgment of others on you and how it affects you. And actually, at the end of the day, you just try to become a better person. And I think this trip has really helped me on that. And any kind of record will be futile compared to all the benefits I had on a personal level.
And what's something you learned about yourself, or something you use in your day-to-day life now that you said, this is something that taught me, that the big trip has taught me?
Yes, a lot of things. I think maybe things are indirect, so I don't realize them, if I can say, and others not. You know, like I think like everybody has the judgment of others has some influence on the people. You know, on the way they act, on the way they behave, on the way they dress. And actually, before I left, a lot of people were kind of judging me. I wasn't, you know, it's a crazy idea, he's never going to do it. And this is just actually listening to these people. Sometimes can be nice when it's productive. Sometimes it's not productive. And you just have to do it. You don't have to be scared to step out, go outside and do it. And yeah, it might sound like just a typical American talk show where people say, yeah, just go for it, follow your dreams. But actually, I think it's true. The first step out of the door, you do it. You don't care about what people think. And if you do too much, well, it will have an impact on your creativity. It will have an impact, I think, on your happiness. And then I did it. And when I came back, everybody knew I was going to do it. Everybody knew I was capable of doing it. Of course, it was a great idea. But when you first have it, people will not follow you. And that's normal. But it's just your gut, and you have to go for it right now. For example, how it's helping me, I hope it will help me. I have the objective to write a book and to make a movie, and I've never written a book before. I've never made a movie before, but let's do it, you know?
It's step by step. Some days you have the writer's block, and you know the other days will hopefully be better.
Yes, exactly. You build, and who knows?
Step by step.
One day there will be a book with my name on it.
Yeah.
You know, and it might sound a bit pretentious to say that, but I think you have to be pretentious a bit by yourself, on a personal level, and
in order to make a difference.
And to have ambitions. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think.
And I think you had quite a few sponsors
yes.
in order to have this whole trip.
Yes.
I don't think it would be easy to knock on the door of a company to say, hey, I'm an unknown guy and yes. I have an objective that is too big to understand. I will yes. cycle around the world. How easy was it for you to get those sponsorships?
I thought, okay, go and talk to companies that actually like cycling. People that might have wanted to do that when they were my age, but didn't have the occasion due to many different reasons. And that worked, you know. That actually was the basis of what made the project possible, you know. Oh, the first, you know, you get the first sponsor. And when you talk to another firm, you say, oh, I have this sponsor. And you're like, okay, so one guy is actually trusting you. And then everything comes, and that's how I got sponsored throughout the trip. It wasn't easy, of course, at the start. And now maybe I have a bit more legitimacy because the trip is done, and it's of course easier for a brand to come on the trip when the trip is done. But it's still a great show of support, that's of course. But it was, yeah, a bit of perseverance. I had never done that before, and at the end it came through. So that was nice.
All right, super. You have been home for almost a month now.
Yeah.
What's your big objective for the coming year, from a sportive point of view?
From a sporting point of view, well, now if I say it, I will have to do it. That's the problem. Okay. Okay. So now I kind of have to decide officially. I have a lot of dreams. A lot of my dreams on the long run. I would love to cycle through Africa. I think there's a very interesting record which I would love to beat, from the Caire to Cape Town in South Africa, which would be amazing to do. It's 23,000 kilometers, so that would be no, not at all, 15,000 kilometers I believe, or even less. Sorry, my mistake. Don't quote me on that, please. And it's a very nice record, which is now held by Mark Beaumont, which I would love maybe to beat. So that would be a different kind of trip. That's a long run objective. But on the smaller term, who knows? Maybe do an Ironman, maybe do a few cycling races. But I mean, I'm not really a racer. I'm not a loser at the same time, in the sense that if I go, I don't go just to participate. I do to do well. You know, I deal very badly with failure. You know, I start something, I go to succeed. You know, I personally, it's very hard for me to deal with failure, and so yeah, who knows? Maybe an Ironman. We'll see.
All right.
I said maybe. Huh?
All right. No, thank you, Giorgio, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Also, thank you for bringing me in a tour around Brussels.
Yes, nice.
Around the small hills and the big forest.
Yeah.
It was a very nice tour. Thank you for sharing the story. I would like to say good luck on the book and the movie that you're preparing.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we see your name for that record in Africa.
Yes, who knows? In a few years, that would be nice. Thank you very much, Luke.
All right, thank you, and safe cycling as always.
Thank you very much. Bye.
This talk with Giorgio really inspired me to get back on the saddle, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to comment below. From the pedals to the podcast, you are part of the movement. Stay sweaty, stay impactful, keep riding strong.